We're actually starting prepping the weeklies.
There's got our second episode of Ride on the Raritan. Myself and Ted and Justin here going to go ahead and talk about all things, as of right now, Rutgers football. I'm wearing a Rutgers basketball shirt. I think it was the only scarlet. Yes, great minds think alike. This is the only scarlet thing I had easily accessible. But how's your week been?
The week's been good. I didn't actually wasn't on site for the game this week due to the weather,
Mm-hmm.
the weather delays, the lightning, had a few things to take care of, so I watched the game at home. So they pushed the game back 1 hour. We saw that with the Philly and Dallas game this week too. Lightning
Okay.
becoming more involved. So
Yeah, that's the storms that you guys are probably catching that passed through Tennessee here a couple days prior. But yeah, dude, yeah, 2-0. Well, I guess we can start with that. Hey, we're 2-0. Um, I don't know if we touched on it last week, but I mean, my big thing is if we can make it through these first four home games, um, unscathed in the loss column, I think that would give us a significant advantage moving into the back half of our schedule, which is not particularly favorable. We see Oregon, Illinois, and then obviously we all know, the back-to-back brutal drubbing at the end of the season that we're going to have to deal with Ohio State at the Horseshoe, and then thankfully we get Penn State at home. But dude, Penn State's looking like a problem this year.
Penn State at home, even Maryland the beginning of November at home. Our
Mm-hmm.
actual home game October's Oregon night game. So two night games this year, which I'm excited about. The Iowa
Yeah,
game on Friday, then the Saturday home game against Oregon, and then going away to Purdue. So yeah, I think if we could leave September, 4-0, it puts us in a great place. I mean, four home games back to back to back, fan experience, recruiting. I think it's pivotal for us to really leave September undefeated.
absolutely. And we talked about last week how we would have liked for us to show a little bit more separation, but I mean, just goes to show with um, Ohio going into Morgantown and beating West Virginia just proves the point that, I mean, yes, we would have liked to have shown some more separation last week versus the defending MAC champion, but they are by no stretch of the imagination a pushover going into another, big time school. I know their program has been kind of on the downslide, but I know Rich Rod is back. So I know a lot of fans in Morgantown are probably hyped about that. But being able to go and beat, another team, another big time team, goes to show that, they're the real deal when it comes to, smaller programs.
Yeah, I mean the MAC so far. I mean, a lot of their top teams, their top tier teams, have been pretty competitive. And we saw it this week. I
Mm-hmm.
think too, beating West Virginia. Almost as a Rutgers fan, you love to see Ohio University go in there and beat West Virginia.
Oh, absolutely.
But one of the longtime Big East legacy rivals. We never seem to really come close to beating. I mean, I know when I was back at Rutgers, we were up at halftime against West Virginia. There was snow on the field, and we shoveled all
Oh
this.
yeah,
They came back and beat us. So West Virginia is, from the legacy of the backyard brawls to, you know, them pulling a lot of New Jersey kids over the years, especially out of Essex County. I mean, anytime we could go in there or see anyone beat West Virginia, it's a little bit of excitement.
yeah. But obviously, we talked about the weather delay. I mean, the Peacock, man, the Peacock thing is so frustrating. The streaming services are just out of control. It's like you have to play roulette to figure out um, where you're going to be watching the game. But I eventually got it figured out when I was at work and was able to watch the game. I mean, I know I had mentioned that the stadium looked a little bit empty last week. This week was pretty much the same, but it's obviously understandable. With the hour weather delay, I was I was watching some of the field conditions, and it looks like it got pretty dicey out there. Um, so I can't really blame the stadium or I guess the fan base for not being there as in force as I would have liked. But I guess we could just dive into like what's your overarching thoughts on the game? How'd you feel going into it?
I'm loving the offense for the most part. I know we've always been run heavy. We ran the ball,
Mm-hmm.
I think, more than anyone last year in the Big Ten. But to actually go out and have faith and consecutively see us go back to the air after, historically, having quarterbacks not really be our strength, or it seems like, we're not really producing NFL tier quarterbacks. I mean, I'm loving the passing game. I'm loving it. Even with the weather, DT Sheffield, came through, made a nice tough catch at the end along the
Mm-hmm.
end zone. I love seeing what Ian Strong's doing, KJ Duff. I mean, they're both, coming through our games, almost having double digit receptions, having consecutive games, Ian Strong over 100 yards both 2 games in a row. So, I mean, if he
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the
stays, I
last
mean,
time. I don't remember the last time we've had um, back-to-back 100-yard receptions for a receiver,
I think,
receiving games that is. But yeah, I mean, Strong with the 9 catches, almost a double-digit catches. Duff almost had double-digit catches. He had 6. Um, dude, Athan with the 4 touchdown passes.
yeah, over 250 passing yards too.
Yeah,
Exciting to see. And actually, I don't think people give him enough credit. I think too, we not that we talk about his lack of mobility, but he's shifty out there, moving
yeah, he made
to
some
the
dudes miss. He
side.
must have he must have heard my criticisms last pod, and he's like, "I'm going to show you. Watch this." And he made some people miss in the backfield. I will say this though, he took a lot of unnecessary hits um, on some of those scrambles, and you could tell he was getting kind of banged up. So I was getting nervous, honestly, for a minute. I'm like, "Hey, let's take it easy. We don't need to be doing all that. We need you for the rest of the season."
Yeah, and I think that was some of the broadcaster talked about that a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to take the charge, and I love the toughness going for a few extra yards. But I know the coaching staff and fans, we don't really want to be seeing him take necessary hits too, and maybe going down a little sooner when he needs to. So that's always, as a fan, that's always a tough one to swallow.
Absolutely. And he almost threw the ball 40 times. I don't remember the last time a Rutgers quarterback has had almost 40 tosses.
Maybe Teal. I think Teal would be the utmost. I think, and even from the receiver,
Yeah,
I think Strong is giving me a little bit Carew vibes. Melton.
this is true.
I think Melton was there. We had that COVID season, and he probably
Mm-hmm.
didn't get as much time as he needed at the games to hit some of those stats. Even though I think he is number 6 on receptions, I think for a career. So maybe receiving yards. I need to double check that one, but yeah, I'm getting Carew vibes from Strong. He's emerging as a go-to person. Duff making tough catches. Athan making great throws. Hitting people.
Oh, absolutely.
First.
He did miss. He did. I will say this: Ethan did miss DT on that one out route in the red zone that probably would have been a touchdown towards the end of the game. But I mean, when you have when you have a great performance passing the ball, I mean, you got to find something to nitpick here. So we don't just give him. We can't give him all the flowers.
Yeah. Offensively, I mean, my riders were DT Sheffield last week and Campbell. So, Campbell got a touchdown. He had a nice run. I think we're starting to see, Antoine Raymond really emerge as that number 1 overall back. I mean, him and Campbell
Yeah.
averaging over 5 yards a carry. So I don't know, too, if you think, next week's going to be a run heavy week against Norfolk State, or we could expect to see one of them go over 100 yards, if not both, or, we really should be consecutively
I
focusing
don't.
on the passing game.
I don't know if we're gonna see a lot of frequent unless we can sit down and solidify um, like a primary back. Um, we might not honestly see a lot of individual 100-yard performances from our running backs. We had 187 yards in the ground as a team, um, but Antoine Raymond had 13 carries. CJ Campbell had, what does it say here, 10 carries um, for 85 and 47 respectively. I will say this, the run game, it seemed like the offensive line wasn't getting the push that we're used to against some of these smaller opponent conference type teams. I don't know if we can see that change next week against Norfolk State, but um, I mean, I think part and parcel to Raymond's average being so high is that one long run that he had later in the second half that he almost took for a touchdown. But it seemed like it was very like methodical, but we didn't see a lot of the chunk type runs that I think we're used to seeing as like a Rutgers offense. And I'm not mad at it because we got the passing game. So I think it's kind of going to be kind of like an adjustment coming from our fan base because we're just so used to doing what we do, and now we don't necessarily have to do that, and it's kind of strange. It's kind of strange to watch.
Yeah, I think too. I'm totally okay with last year we came from Monangai, high expectations. Getting the ball a lot, even with injuries. I mean, he powered through everything, and he knew he was getting there. I think the rock at least two out of every four downs. I thought third down conversions we looked better this week than week one. I think we came up strong there, and I don't know too is with our offensive with the rotation of Dante Chin if there's anything to speak to in our tackle rotation.
Yeah, I was really upset. I mean, I was worried when he went down the first time, but then obviously the second time, um, getting carted off is with what obviously appears to be some kind of lower body, most likely a knee injury. When I think Colin Weber ran into the side of his knee or got thrown into the side of his knee. Um, but I mean, I will say this: it seemed as if they were kind of playing almost like a rotation of offensive linemen. We saw a lot of Needham in there too, even though Chin is technically, I guess, on paper the starter. They don't know if they've. I don't even know if they've entirely decided who um, they're 100% set on yet. But I mean, it's obviously not good. We're two games into the season and we already lost two left tackles. There's really just no easy way to put that. Obviously with the transfer that we lost, I forget his name, so I apologize. But him getting hurt in camp, obviously, he was. I think from all the things that I've heard and read, he was slotted to be either the starter or in competition to be the starter at left tackle. And then obviously, second game in, we lose Dante Chin. Um, I'm hoping it's nothing. We'll see. But obviously, I mean, you've watched enough football in your life. When someone gets carted off, it's hard to be optimistic about stuff like that.
I know they said that most of our O line rotation, even guys last year, got a lot of reps, played a lot of games for filling back spots. I forget the D lineman's name, but that actually they transitioned him from D line to O line
Mm-hmm.
prior to the season. So I don't know if we'll see anything nearsighted like that. I know in the past we've done that multiple times with certain guys. D line, we might transition them into guards, tackles, but yeah, no, O line injuries are probably the one of the most critical things we didn't want to see or any program wants to see.
Yeah, no chance at all. But yeah, I guess we can break down. We can dive into our. Oh yeah, since you touched on your riders of the week, I don't think that either of mine that I had chosen performed particularly well. Um, I was expecting a big bounce back game from Jet Elad. Uh, I won't dive into too much of that right now. We'll wait till we talk about the defense. But the big thing for me is what are we going to do with Jashawn Benjamin? Because I like when he touches the ball. I like what I see, and it's just I get concerned that we might have like a quasi diamond in the rough, but we have so many other people that are touching the ball that he's not going to get the opportunity to really show what he's capable of. I mean, he had that really nice move in the backfield to avoid the tackle for a loss. I mean, granted, it was only like a 3-yard run, but it looked good for a 3-yard run.
And I think that's one of the tough things with our running backs. Do we see that many differences in their styles of running the ball that they're more effective on certain types of on different play types, different formations? I haven't seen enough of that in the first two games to really identify any true differences. I mean, sometimes I think CJ Campbell looks great in certain more explosives, open field, but then Raymond. I mean, overall, I mean, he seems to hit holes, speed, force. He's big and he looks elusive. So, I've had a hard time differentiating too much between them at this point, or their styles at least. So I think
Yeah,
that
especially on that one long run that he had, because from what I remember, he, for all purposes, should have probably been tackled after like the first 7 or 8 yards, and he just ran through dudes and made it into what it was. So I agree that I think moving forward, unless CJ Campbell comes through with some kind of sick performance, I think that it's at this point, I don't want to 100% say it, but I almost am starting to feel more confident in saying that it's probably Antoine Raymond's job to lose at this point. Um, but
what's I think a key takeaway I've seen, and we did it with Cruzshank in the past, we did it with Janarin Grant. I'm interested to see if we see DT Sheffield move in and then handing him the rock and letting him run the ball a little bit further down. We got big receivers that can block.
mm-hmm.
I could see that. I mean, he's returning
Maybe run some like jet sweeps or something.
jet sweep, so I could see that. I could also see them bringing Black into play too. You know, yeah, he's got the speed. Some jet sweeps. A second and 10 formation. See what they can do in open field. I mean, we got the receivers to block. I think. I mean, they're very talented, but it's some things I think we could see maybe later in the season, especially if we find ourselves only being able to pass the ball and struggling to run the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is a good problem to have, but yeah, I want to see what Ben Black can do. I want to see what Jashawn Benjamin can do. Um, Not that I'm hating on, I love having DT Sheffield on the team. I love having CJ Campbell on the team. Don't get me wrong, but I think I'm more focused on like maybe I'm crazy for this, but like I'm diving into like my NCAA dynasty mode brain, and I'm starting to think about like, hey, what are we gonna look like next year? Like, who's gonna be here next year? Like, I want to see what they can do now, at least in bits and pieces, so that way, um, come next season, we're not out here just completely taking a wild guess as to, um, what our offense is going to be looking like, who our primetime performers are going to be. But
Yeah, it's scary with the transfer portal today. I mean, our skill players, I think there's a lot to build from and take away from. I think on offense, I think even O line. I think for recruiting, if we could have a strong September, even go in October, and really start building those commits, those foundational guys. And I mean, I don't want to go to defense just yet, but yeah, I mean, I think next season we'll be in a stronger point where we came off last season with a lot of hype and hope and
mm-hmm.
making the football playoffs, and then losing our bowl game in the end, and there were a lot of injuries last season. But I
Yeah,
think fans should be excited. I think even getting to know some of the players too, with NCAA returning. I mean, when I was in college, everyone played NCAA football.
yeah, that was the
When I
game,
was in
dude.
high school, so
Yeah,
now I think getting those player ratings that you see where Minung guys rated in 90 in NCAA like last season. So I haven't played NCAA probably since I was in college. But I mean, for students, fan base, getting people back, I think this is huge. And I would like to see our high school programs. It's hard to play Saturdays. I know my alma mater's Saturday at 12 p.m. every game, and
mm-hmm.
they might have 2 Friday games. So I'm hoping some of these night games, critical home games in September, we can really start building our fan base back. I think we're getting there with Shiano's leadership. I do. I mean, last
I
season
mean
to
the
swallow,
back
but
yeah, the back half our schedule is so tough, but looking at it right now, like we have a real opportunity to be 5-0 going into Washington the first week of October. Excuse me, the second week of October. If we can Iowa, if we can just figure it out against Iowa, which I think that we can. This year they're not looking as great. And I don't really know much about Minnesota, but like it's Minnesota. Like as a Rutgers fan, I have to be able to say that we can confidently say that we have the ability to defeat a Minnesota team. Um,
so
I haven't watched any of Washington's games, but from what I gather, they're a dangerous team. From what I'm hearing, I listen to a lot of the other um, Big Ten slash Rutgers podcasts, and I follow them. I follow the highlights and stuff. And Washington is going to be a tough game for us, especially since it's at Washington. It's going to be our second away game in a row, and we go obviously, geographically running from New Jersey all the way to Washington is not a good time. So
Yeah, I think one of the interesting points with Minnesota is people always forget, PJ Fleck came from the Rutgers coaching staff. He
mhm.
was big. He was very popular under Shiano. Our wideouts loved him. Very, I think, like offensive minded, centric. New Jersey guys, I think whatever other offensive coaches came from Minnesota that we brought back. So there's always a little bit of ties in Minnesota. I don't know too many New Jersey guys who have gone out to play at Minnesota. The only thing I've really known Minnesota football for is the running backs they've put out in the past. Running backs. I forget Muhammad his name. I don't know if it was last season, the season before. He was a brute. I mean, historically, Lawrence Maroney, Marion Barber, guys of
Yep.
that sure. Yeah, and it's definitely a tough place to play out there that cold, and especially the fall, the winter time. But yeah, I mean, Minnesota definitely. I think we could definitely, take them, beat them. I know it's definitely a little bit of a rivalry between PJ Fleck and Coach Gianna.
I mean, not to sit here and try to say that we're going to try to settle for mediocrity, but if we can go, if we can win these first 5 games, we just need to catch one W for the remainder of the season, and we make a bowl.
I think last season even go into it beating Washington University home. I mean, we wanted a game-winning field goal. We were up in the first half. So, but that excitement though too. I mean, we always start off with our non-conference games. I know every program hopes to, because they're almost kind of guaranteed wins. You always hope, or you're expected to win those games. But I mean, coming in game 4 into September, prime football season, night lights, fan experience. They're going to be doing the fireworks. There's going to be the red block bar is going to be highlighted. The music's going to be there, Jersey themed. I, you know what? I think the excitement, the fans are going to be there. So I think Iowa playing them home, especially we want revenge from 2 years ago. I mean, playing them home, and same kind of sequence, game 4 at the end of not last season, but the season before was definitely tough. They came here, great defense. We couldn't do anything, and it was a little bit of a blow.
Yeah, that was a tough sell. But yeah, let's dive into our segment where we talk about defense, offense, position groups. I mean, we'll just get the elephant in the room out the way. Defense. I'm terrified of this defense.
Yeah,
There's really just no other way for me to put it.
and it's very tough too when you see everything too what goes out. They'll say, Rutgers defense, we kept the running game to under 120 rushing yards. Juan Finn looked great out there. Seemed like he had the time. He could pass the ball. He was able to run the ball. So I didn't really see anything where they were running through us all over. But passing, it seemed like Jaquan Finn was making plays. Like they let us know how great he was a quarterback before the game started, and we got to see it.
Yeah, I was listening to the recap of that Night Report put out, and I hadn't really thought of it this way, but they brought up a really interesting point. It just seems like our defense, and I didn't really think about it, but it makes 100% sense, and I can't believe I didn't notice it before. Maybe I noticed it, just didn't realize say it out loud. But our defense just doesn't look fast. We don't have anybody on the defense that looks like they're able to close the distance, or if they get beat, make up for it with some kind of blazing speed. Jabome, just I don't know. He just was getting outrun on multiple plays by their quarterback. It was just a tough look. But I guess before we dive into the position groups, just an overarching defensive scheme. There's 2 big things that I'm really concerned about that we don't that we don't usually see from a Greg Schiano as a head coach type thing with their defense. Is number one, the gash plays. The last 2 seasons, even when we were really, really bad, a couple of years back, during the Ash era, I mean, we weren't giving up gash plays against MAC teams. Obviously we're getting smacked. The Ash era was, the dark ages as a Rutgers fan. We're getting crushed by the more premier Big Ten schools. But we didn't see, or maybe I'm speaking too ignorantly on this, but I don't recall giving up gash plays to a MAC opponent or an FCS team that we would play in the beginning half of our schedule. And then number two is we can't buy a sack.
Yeah, I think it was tough watching this week. One opportunity we really had to get a sack, watching Finn break out and then gather about 8 yards.
I mean, how many times do you remember seeing that? I could count, I think, at least 4 or 5 times that I for sure was like, oh, we're going to get a sack here. And it just didn't work out. That's 5 sacks.
Yeah. I mean, even two. I mean, at least, coming from game one, we were able to call specific players who were making plays, whether good or bad. I mean, this week, I think Koch Sanders emerged to be, second in the team in tackles, runner Moses Walker. Moses Walker, I think, totals 14 tackles. He had, I think, 12 tackles in game one. So, for linebacker output, I wasn't really seeing them as much. Finn had a lot of time. I mean, the big defensive play was Bo Mascow taking to the house. I mean, it's definitely something to build on. I would like, our defensive backs to really, build that camaraderie, form leadership, be better in sync. I think we see that pump they kind of bit on the first play too, where they made it 7-7. So that was kind of hard watching.
Yeah.
Fan, I mean, I'm not out there on the field playing and reading and going against competition. So it just one some of the things we noticed, especially coming from such strong defensive back units in the past. And two, we've had some big key linebackers throughout the past as well, which makes it kind of challenging, especially for guys who are now finally getting some burn. They're starting, so I think it's stuff to build off in next season. But for now, it's definitely something to be wary of.
Yeah, I mean, it is just tough, but we'll go ahead and start working on our breakdowns. The D line. I mean, again, I guess there's just so much going on. I don't really pay attention to a lot of the defensive tackle play. We didn't really see a lot of up the middle runs for gains, so I guess they're doing what they need to be doing. But I mean, the defensive ends, just we're not getting pressure, and when we are getting pressure, we can't finish the play. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that I expect, let's say, of those plays that we watched yesterday, that was going to be a sack every single time. Their quarterback, Finn he's an athlete, so he's going to make things happen. But it's just, I guess I start to wonder, is a lot of this criticism that we have of the defensive backfield entirely on them, or is it part and parcel to the fact that the quarterback these last 2 games has more or less been able to do whatever they want to do?
Yeah, and I think it's challenging when we're going against mobile quarterbacks. I think we've always kind of struggled with mobile quarterbacks. That just makes it, even easier to spotlight what we need from our defensive ends. Whether we're building D line, defenses now, in the future,
Mm-hmm.
skills to work on, defensive schemas, to implement. It's it's definitely something to call out. And even in the past, I've been able to name both their ends, key ends. They're impactful on defense. They're dropping back in coverage. They're making plays on special teams, whether it's blocking punts. And now we're moving into a little bit of different situations where we got new D linemen, new transfers that came in, and we haven't seen anything to really build off of. But this year, so definitely missing Muhammad Torre big time, Kyle Hamilton big time. So
Yeah, I mean, moving on to the linebackers, I just, like we said, it's tough to, when we're dealing with these, mobile quarterbacks back-to-back games, especially with Daquan Finn. I mean, he was, I think, a better tiered athlete than Parker Navarro is. But we talked about earlier, just I feel like we just don't have like the speed. You know, our linebackers sometimes it seems like they're not rangy enough. They're very good at staying gap solid and gap sound and making plays downhill. But I think what I've noticed is like once they start having to operate